We ready. Let's get it. Let's get it. But you know that tune. We got to play it again, bro.
Have to.
Got to. What is it? It's that. Death could not hold you down. Hey. You are the risen king. Hold on. Seated in majesty. What's that? Hey, you are the risen king. Hit that note right there. Yes, sir. That eats every time.
Never fails.
Every time. But no, you ready?
Let's get it.
All right, yo. What's up? It's your boy D Starks.
Artist.
And you are now tuned in to the Just Different Podcast, where we talk about everything faith, life, and culture. If you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. And if you've been rocking with us for a while, welcome back. We are so glad to have you here.
As always, man.
Yes, we tapped in. But one thing, one thing I did want to mention, because somebody had put this in the comments, the last episode, because they were talking about like our retwist, which you had your hair twisted in the last episode, though, right?
EP was twisted.
Yeah. But I didn't get to mention this in the last episode in the intro because we just wanted to get into it. But just to make it clear, I was not trying to steal your drip or nothing like that. Be real. Be real. I was not trying to steal your drip.
All right,
like,
bro.
you know what I mean? I thought the people may have thought that, like, oh dang, like, you know, Darin trying to get like Jordan.
Trying to be like
But what they little did they know is like you, if anything, you stole mine.
that sounds good, bro.
No, for sure. I had the 2-strand twist first.
But if we want to take it back to back in the day, I remember I got that box cut, and then you try to get the box cut after I got it.
The box cut's crazy.
We try to take it back in the day, back in middle school.
No, I forgot about the box. But
Yes,
but look, y'all, he had a box, and we may have to. We're gonna have to put a picture up. I'm gonna put a picture up for sure when we edit this. But yeah, you had a box, but because you had like really curly hair, so your box was like it wasn't
lopsided.
Yes, like it
was uneven.
It was disproportionate. Like it didn't
have a solid foundation.
Yeah, nah, it just didn't work
At all.
My box was killing yours though.
But I had it first. No, we're not talking about my box was killing him.
My box was killing yours.
All right, bro.
No, that's crazy. I remember me and my friends used to talk about that. They were like, bro, black kids have had like every type of hairstyle.
Every black kid that had a box cut, I promise you.
No, I feel like what we go through. I had like the slick. I rocked the slick forever.
The slick.
The basic bald slick. Fade. The bald fade for me on this, all around tape. You know what I mean? And then the box.
It was a box after that.
I rocked the basic fro for a little bit. No, I don't think I ever had the basic fro. I feel like you did though.
I did. Yeah, I had the basic fro for a little bit.
You definitely
and I got
did.
the box.
Then the box, yeah. And I think I did. I think that was pretty much it for me. I had my box phase for a minute, and then it turned to like a curly box though. You know what I mean?
You loved your box. Bro had his box phase for 5 years.
Chill. It was a minute. Then I started twisting my hair, and now we here now. But
now we here.
Yeah, but anyways. We're going to get straight into it. So the last time we went live was on TikTok, and this was about, I want to say like 3 to 4 weeks ago. Yeah. I want to say around that time, maybe even a month. Yeah. It's been a minute, which is weird because we usually went live a lot. Like
at one point.
Yeah, at one point, which we're actually going to be going live a lot more the last 3 months of this year. We got a special announcement in the next 2 weeks that we'll share with y'all.
Sure.
But anyways, little side note, be prepared for that. But yeah, the last time we went live, we were just talking about really, I guess, the things that we had been learning in a few aspects that have been happening in our life and transitions God had been taking us through and what he had really laid upon our heart. And one thing that I was explaining during that live is the fact that you can be family with people you're not friends with.
That's a bar.
And it's because I believe we shared it on the podcast, but me and Jordan just recently moved out, and we have been able to get our own place, out the Mammy's crib. Yeah. Yes, sir. We got our own place, and one thing that I was being challenged with during that transition and during that move is the fact that I needed to be a lot more intentional with my relationship with my parents, specifically in my family, like my brother and my sister. And the reason for that is when I came back home in January to do online school, a lot of things were happening, but it was like I was in the same household with my parents. We were sharing the same kitchen. We were literally 10 feet away in opposite living rooms, but I never really saw them. We never really spent quality time with one another.
Yeah.
And I guess during that time for me, I misconstrued my proximity with them with intimacy to them.
Right.
Right. Like, so I had like, for some reason thought just because I was around them that I actually knew them.
Right.
And so it was just like, a basic routine to just come to the crib, go to my room, do my thing, and just like, oh, say, hey, what's up? And it's like, okay, like I see them every day. I'm around them pretty often, occasionally,
every now and then,
here and there. And so it's just like, oh, well, then I have to be close with them.
Yeah.
And so, that was like, that was just something I was challenged with. I was convicted with, is the fact that, like, time spent isn't always quality time.
Right. That's fair.
Something that the time spent isn't always quality time, and it just led into what I mentioned, is the fact that you can be family with people you're not friends with. So in that same lane and same regard, what God has shown me is the fact that, like, you can be a person who goes to church consistently every week, every Sunday, Wednesday night youth group.
Yeah.
Going to the events on Saturday and Sunday with the young adults, right? Hitting the Bible studies here and there, making sure you're tapping in on the lives, right? And you can think that just because you're around God, that you actually know him.
Right.
Just because you're in close proximity with him, that y'all have a genuine relationship. And so, that was really revealed to me in the fact that sometimes, like, we've in our life, like, we've made him Lord, but has he become our friend yet?
Right.
And that was like the biggest thing, is the fact that, like, just with your parents, like, you respect them, you love them, you admire them, but right, like, are they your friend?
Right.
Are they someone that you feel like you can entrust them with the most vulnerable and intimate parts of yourself, right? And just a parallel with God of like, like, yeah, he's Lord, you have reverence, you may fear him, and you say you love him, but like, how much of yourself are you actually giving to him?
Right.
And not just misconstruing and misunderstanding your like proximity with him with like intimacy. And so I was like, we got to do an episode on that. And shout out, I think it was Troy. I can't remember who it was. I was like, I don't know what the title of this would be, but it's like, it's got to be like Friends with God.
Friends with God.
Friends with God. And
shout out.
So that's what we're going to really talk about today. It's like what it means to be a friend of God and what that kind of entails, because I think that that's something that, obviously that needs to be talked about more. It's something that I think really for the first time, really since I came to God, I think in 2018 when I got saved, I had that experience and gave him my life. He was Lord. And I think now like he is now genuinely becoming like a friend. So now that's the process I'm going through. I definitely thought it'd just be like a perfect conversation, because it's something that, I think that needs to be talked about.
For sure. I'm excited about this one. There was definitely a time in my life where y'all was really just roommates. Like,
what do you mean?
Like you, like my family, like we were just. It was literally just like y'all. Like you were talking about, like we lived in the same house, saw each other occasionally, and it was literally just that. Like you just literally just held the title of like brother or mom or dad. And I think what it was is, because my mom was only ever a mother for me, or my dad was only ever a dad, and that's how it initially started off. I thought that's all it ever could be. You know what I mean?
That's good.
I thought that's all it ever.
Good.
I thought it was all it ever could be. Not understanding that a lot of our connections and relationships can be very multifaceted and really should be.
For a fact.
That's something that we need to be even more aware of in our relationship with God, because when you think about him, like in his character, there's such a depth to it that we have to make sure that we're opening the door to allow him to be more than just how he's always shown up or how we've always interpreted him, So, and there's a scripture in Exodus 3:13, and I'm paraphrasing, but this was Moses, and he was about to go to God's people, and he was like, okay, when I tell them the God of the Israelites has sent me, like, and they ask me what your name is, what do I tell them? And God says, he says, tell them I am who I am. He says, tell them I am has sent you. And I think what he's saying here is he's not just one thing. You can't just put him in a box. Like, I am blank. I am, I'm hope, I'm love, I'm Lord, I'm friend. Like you fill in the blank. You know what I mean? Even when you look at all of the names of God, like Elohim, Alpha, Omega, Abba, Father, Jehovah Nisi, like all of these names, he's not just one thing. So we can't just get like so caught up in this bad habit of looking at God in such a one-sided way, And something else I want to mention is God doesn't change though, because I don't want to paint this picture of like this like schizophrenic God that's like here one day, gone the next. And like God is the same, like yesterday, today, forevermore. What happens is God doesn't change. It's just the part of him that you need the most in that moment is the part that'll always show up more prominently. So it's really us that's changing. Like what I needed God to be yesterday might not be what I need him to look like today. And it's just whatever part of him I need is what's going to show up. So I just wanted to make that point. But and like at the core of what I'm trying to say is really just we have to be more intentional about allowing God to be or show up. We have to be more intentional about how we're allowing God to show up, you know? And do our due diligence of opening that door. And just because he's always just been this, or that's how he's always looked, does not mean that's all he is, you know? So we can't just put him in that box like that.
Right. And I like that you mentioned that. It's the fact that you're not saying that God necessarily like changes like his character. Mm-hmm. That I think the point you're getting at is the fact that this isn't necessarily the correct term because there's another one that's adjacent to it, but the fact that he's like omnipresent, like just as he's everywhere at all times, he is all things at all times.
Right.
And so right at the times where okay, I'm depressed, I'm lonely, I'm in a moment of my life to where I need a confidant, someone to like give this part of myself to, that's what he is, right? In a moment where I need clarity, I need vision, I need direction on my next step, that's what he will be, right? It's not the fact that he necessarily changes. It's the fact that he is, I am all the time. And that doesn't change, right? Dang, that's low key. That'll kind of mess your brain up. That's that. But he's all things at all times. So I think that's good. And the fact that something that me and Jordan, I don't know why I talked to you. I said that in the third person. Like,
like I'm not sitting right next to bro.
Something that me and you had talked about. I'm like talking to them though. Something that me and you had talked about recently, like literally I think the other day, is the fact that, you know, so me and Jordan, of course, like we're brothers, but we're co-hosts. And we're not only co-hosts, but we're business partners. And we're not only business partners, but we're friends. And obviously, like we mentioned earlier, we just added another part of our relationship. We're not only business partners, but now we're roommates. And so now we have a multitude of relationships between each other that we have to manage and know how to communicate well in, because each one requires different type of language. Because I'm not going to, in a moment of when he needs a friend, be talking to him as a roommate, or in a moment where he needs a brother, talking to him as a co-host or a business partner. And so that's something that, you know, we've had to work through, something that we've had to recognize and even just acknowledge, right? And so with that, because like you said, like, you know, God is a multitude of things, and he's going to reveal his character in so many different ways as you continue to walk with him. Like he may be provider in one season, he may be a comforter in the next, and like, you know, but as he reveals all these different sides like of himself, and you start acknowledging like all these things that he is, it's just important that like you like know how to really just manage it well. But more importantly, like you said, it's just like allow him to be those things for you. And more importantly, because, you know, sometimes we can just get in that mode where it is so one faceted, and it's just like, oh, well, you know, that's something I would go to God with. Looking at him in one way, right? Instead of like actually like, yo, like he's a friend too, right? He can be someone that you confide in as well. And so I think it's just allowing access to like for him to be all those things that he wants to be for you in different settings, and just acknowledging what that is and knowing how to manage it well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think something that comes along with that, with like managing all of that, is just also making sure that you're not forgetting that he's all of the other things when he's showing up as one thing in a specific moment, if that makes sense. Because I think what can happen with this conversation of making God a friend is that friendship in some cases can cause you to lose your reverence for God, right? In some situations, because if you constantly only see him as a friend, then I think for some people you can start to lose that fear of him, right? Because like if you're not looking or remembering him as a Lord or remembering him as a father, and he's just a friend, then that's something that can happen, right? And some people get in modes where they kind of like take advantage of that sometimes, right? But I feel like it's very possible to be friends with someone that you still respect, with someone that you still revere. And I think what you just have to do is like what we've been saying. It's like make him a friend, but also just don't forget that he's also a father as well. That he's still Lord, even when he's a friend for me, when he's a comforter for me, like he's still Lord. But it's just about not confining him to that. But yeah, because that's something I've noticed at some point in my life when I started making God a friend. Sometimes it can cause you to sort of like forget that he's also Lord and forget how he's shown up in the past, but you just can't allow yourself to forget. Remember, but don't confine. That's really what I always tell myself.
Yeah, and I think that it kind of, comes down to always just keeping that reverence for God, right? Because I think we had this conversation before, talking about like grace and truth and the balance between that and understanding, okay, like, like God's going to give you grace, but he's also going to discipline you as well. Right. So like, even with him being being a friend, it's not one of those things where you just kind of, like you said, just take advantage of, like you wouldn't take advantage of grace. And it's just like, oh, like you just see him loosely of like, oh, well, like, people say, oh, well, God knows my heart. You feel what I'm saying? Like, oh, he just knows my intent and where I'm at. Kind of like you may like say about your friend, like, oh, well, they know where I'm at, but it'll be good. We'll be fine. And not keeping that reverence still at the table. And there's definitely, it's not like you can, there's just, it's exclusive. They're exclusive from one another. Like you can't have one without the other. It definitely can coexist, like you're saying. So I think that's important. But like you said, I think the biggest thing is just like always keeping that that reverence for him, because I think people can sometimes just get, I don't know, maybe not even want to present God as friend, right? Because it's just like it seems too loose. It doesn't seem like as there's too much like very like reverence in that title or in that relationship, but there definitely can be.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I've even seen that with my own eyes. It's just people sort of presenting God in like a sort of like a fearful way. And I think which is why that's dangerous, is because you have people who start following God simply out of fear. And that's all there is. Like they're following God because they're scared of, his wrath, or they're scared of going to hell, like the consequences. So, but I think when you do that, it's kind of just, I don't know, it's not really a relationship at all. So I think that's why, like you said, you can't have one without the other. They both like go hand in hand for sure. And the one thing that I feel like God has been teaching me in this process of making him a friend to me, even in my own life, is that he desires for us to love him, but I don't think you can fully really experience all of that love until you've made him a friend. And I got that from John 15:16. And in this verse, it says, "You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you so that you may bear fruit." So when I read this verse, I immediately thought about the dynamic of a parent and a child, and how with my earthly parents, like when I'm born into this world, I didn't necessarily choose them. I didn't necessarily choose my family. Right? How like God is saying in this verse, but like they chose me. But what I can choose is I can choose friends. So what happens with our relationship with God is that a lot of us are chosen by God, but we have yet to choose him. I think when you only take on the title of God's son and nothing more, and you just leave it at that, you still have yet to choose God. Because like you said, like when you're God's son or God's daughter, he's chosen you. But I think when you just sit in that, it's like, okay, like what's next? And I'm saying like acknowledging that you are chosen is a huge step in your walk. Acknowledging, okay, I am a son of God. I am a daughter of God. That is a part of my identity, but you can't just leave it at that. I think what needs to happen is you say, okay, I acknowledge I'm a son or a daughter of God. Now let me choose God just how he's chosen me, right? Like we've talked about before on the podcast, like love is a choice. So us choosing God as a friend, like I said, because you can't choose family, you can choose friends. So when I choose God to be my friend, that is a part of that love, right? And it's sort of opening the door to a new level of it, because love is a act of choice, and like we said before. So yeah, I think you can't really fully experience that until you've made him also a friend to you.
No, that's fire. That's a bar, and I like that. I think that's one of the I guess foundations. I mean, of course, any relationship, but particularly, of course, like when we're talking in the context of friendship, is that aspect like of choice,
right?
Of seeking that out, of intentionally saying, hey, like I want you in my life.
Yeah.
Right. I want you to be a part of my inner circle and the intimate things that may be happening with me. And like, I'm choosing for you to come in and like for me to be vulnerable with you and things like that. And what is, you said that you were gonna mention this before, but
There's certain access you only give to friends.
That's it. There's certain access you only give to friends.
Right. Like, think about it. Like, even with like my earthly father, like I've had situations in my life where, you know, I've messed up or slipped up or did something, and you know, my natural instinct isn't going to, I don't want to run to my father in that moment, because a part of me might be afraid of that discipline or afraid of what he's going to say, or even disappointment. You know what I mean? I don't want him to be disappointed in me, but I am going to run to a friend. So what happens is when you detach that friendship out of your relationship with God, you're going to start hiding things from him. I don't want God to be disappointed in me. I'm not going to take it to him. But you would go to a friend for those things. So that's why we have to allow that to happen, allow that to be a possibility. Like, okay, so now that God is also a friend, I can go to him with this.
Fact.
Father, I sinned. Friend, you know, so yeah.
Fact. That's good. I love that. And it's just, like you said, it's choice, and it's about access. And I think one of the beautiful things that God does, and I think this is a part of, or like a parallel of like, okay, why God, or like he sent his son Jesus to come down in the flesh, is to be close. Right. And so when we're talking about, okay, being friends with God, and we're using like all these, you know, synonyms of like who he is, which can probably get a little confusing and stuff. I mean, I think the biggest thing is the fact that he wants to let us know and be very aware of the fact that he's close to us. And he wants us to draw close to him as well. Yeah. Right. And that can come through the avenue of us choosing and allowing him to be our friend. Right. And so I thought that was like really important, because that access piece is one of the biggest parts. And something else that I wanted to touch on is the why, because I know I've said several times throughout this entire conversation about, like, you know, opening up that door to God, allowing him to be a friend. So I feel like the next thing to address is like, okay, how do you do that? And I think how I've done that is simply by sharing those things with God. That was me being open and sharing certain things with God that I at one point didn't, was the sign that I was allowing him to be a friend. In John 15:15, Jesus says, I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I've called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. So Jesus is saying, you guys, you have now become a friend to me, because I have shared everything with you. Everything that I know, I've shared with you. So I think how we allow him to be a friend is us doing the same, is us sharing everything, us not leaving anything, you know, under the table, or, you know, behind the curtain, and following suit just like he did. So I think that's really a main part of that, is when you start being honest and running to God instead of hiding from him. That is how you start to make him a friend. Yeah. And that reminds me of something that I mentioned. This thing, it's probably had to be months ago. I mean, way back in another EP, of like the difference between like truth and transparency. And so for me, I like that point, because one thing that I've even learned, even just in like actual friendship and relationship across the board, is the importance of transparency. And so the sign for me, or at least something that helped me really become a friend of God, or allowing him to be that for me, and me reciprocating that, is me being transparent. So, you know, when there was an issue or something, a worry, something I was worried about, something I may have had some anxiety about, some like moment of depression I was going through, instead of waiting for some type of conviction to hit, or for someone else to like work me up to go to God, I was already giving that to him. So, you know, you having those moments where like God slaps you across the face of like, you know, you got that there's something in your spirit like urging you and irking you, knowing you need to go to the throne and get on your knees, right? Which I think is important, and isn't anything that's negative at all. That's like God saying, hey, run to me. But like, you know, for me, it was just like, yo, being proactive and going ahead and just like spilling that and letting that known, right? So like basically the example I use all the time, like truth versus transparency, or at least being truthful versus being transparent, is like, you know, when you went out with your friends, whenever you was younger or whatever, and, you know, you tell your parents you was going over Jimmy's house, you know, y'all was gonna go to the Blacktop and, you know, maybe watch a movie, but, you know, you went over there and y'all did go to the Blacktop, probably watch a movie, but y'all went to so-and-so's house over in another city and probably had a party or something goofy like that, right? So like you get back home, your parents ask you, yo, like, how was the weekend? What did you do? And you were like, oh, well, we went to the Blacktop, we played, fives or whatever, and then like we went, to the movies and just went back and we chilled at the house or whatever, right? So in that moment, when they asked you what was going on, you weren't lying. You're being truthful about some of the stuff you did do, but we weren't transparent with everything that actually happened. And so transparency, I think, is key, is just like, I think a part of transparency, which, truth and transparency can be like synonymous, but a part of that to me is like, it's very initiative. It's not reactive. And so for me, one of those things, and I guess how you can really start becoming a friend of God's, practically, to give y'all at least some nuggets, is, giving your heart to him consistently. Right. And when it happens, and like as soon as it happens, and not hiding it and not running away from it or delaying it, and just saying, hey, here it is, and I'm entrusting you with this, and getting in the habit of that.
I'm not gonna lie.
I hope y'all ain't missed that.
I hope y'all ain't missed that. Y'all heard it here first from D Starks. I think that's so good. So basically, like, the truth is told when it's asked for, and transparency is keeping it real without it having to be prompted. Write it down, y'all.
I like that.
Everything he just said was a bar.
I like that. That's good. And then another thing I wanted to mention, I said this earlier, but it's the fact that time spent isn't always quality time. And so making room in your life to have quality time with God. Like, let's just bringing it all the way down. I got this like chapter thing in my hand. Bring it all the way down and literally setting a time, quality time. And that's something that I've had to do even in my like actual relationships, is like, plus a lot of my friends are like long distance. And so like I'm literally having to set time aside of like, hey, on Tuesday, this is when I'm hitting this person up. We're going to talk for 30 minutes on the phone. On Wednesday, this is when we're going to talk. And literally just scheduling it out and like having that quality time and like setting that aside. And so I think that's also important too, because again, like, going to church is great. Making sure you're at that Bible study, right? And going out with like like-minded individuals on the weekends when these events are happening at your church, your youth group, whatever, that's great. But also setting that time aside just with you and God to build that relationship. And it's like, you sitting down like, yo, God, what do you like? What's your favorite? You know what I mean? Like conversation. Like, what do you like? What do you dislike? You know what I mean? Like, what interests you? What doesn't? Like, what are you passionate about? You feel what I'm saying? Like, we got to bring it down.
God, we have to.
You feel me? And it sounds goofy at first, but when you start looking at it, it's like, dang, like, it's like, because this is someone you're really trying to get to know. So I think that's a part of it too. So those two things for sure, just like practically, and how like, okay, how are you going to make God your friend and all of that? Which I think is a big part of the relationship for sure.
That's a bar.
Did you have anything else though on that end?
No, I think that was it, man.
You got it?
Yeah.
What was that bar? What was that bar you got earlier? Well, no, but you said a lot of us, well, all of us have been chosen by God, but not all of us have decided to choose him. Or something along those lines. That was a heater. Yeah. That's the one right there. Choose him.
I like that one. Choose him.
What you got to leave the people with? Go ahead. Just give it to him.
Just give it to him?
Yeah.
I just say that, kind of reiterating, not even a point I made in this EP, but something I've said before. It's something that God's been teaching me. It's just like always student, and how there's always a deeper depth of God that there is to know and that there is to learn. So I guess what I leave the people off with is there's more to him, and there's more of him that he wants you to get to know. And you won't regret it, man. Like in my pursuit of trying to learn more about God and his character and all his different names, and allowing him to be that for me, it's been a crazy experience. Allowing him to be that friend for me, and I'm not even fully where I need to be yet. So I'm excited. But yeah, allow God to show himself to you.
Fact.
Don't put him in a box.
Fact. Yeah. I mean, that's the one. Choose him. It's a relationship, so treat it as such. Treat it as such. You know, he desires to be your friend, and just take the steps to do that. Because I mean, then that's when you really see everything change. I think it's like, you know, we love the fact that it's relationship over religion, and you know, I love that sentiment, and I believe that, and that's something that like is a big, you know, I guess evangelistic tool of like how we're presenting the gospel and who God and what God is, but taking the steps to making sure you're actually walking in that, you know what I mean? And like day by day, you know what I mean? Like refining that of like, yo, okay, like, yo, what did I give this to him today? Right? Like how close did I allow God to get to me this week, last month, in this moment, during that season, and then like making adjustments from there.
Right.
That's it.
Like, it sounds good, but you living it? Are you living it?
That's it.
That's it.
All right. Well, I think that's it. You good?
I think that, yeah, I'm sure.
All right, y'all know what it is, man. Stay you,
Stay real,
and stay humble. We'll catch y'all next week. Much love.